welcome back to Life According to a Middle Schooler. Thank you guys so much for 1,200 listens. Also, a little fun fact, I actually got in contact with a bunch of the platforms that my podcast is available on, and I accumulated all of those platforms, and I actually found out that I have about 300 subscribers, and I think that's a mind-blowing milestone. I think that's really cool. So thank you guys so much for getting me to that insane milestone. Also, be sure to check out our website, Instagram, email, and also our content is actually now on YouTube. So if you want to, you can go check that out. All those links will be in the description. And I know, again, it's been a few weeks since I posted my last episode, but I will tell you this, trying to run a podcast while you're still in school is not easy. You know, I'm busy with school and I'm trying to do this at the same time. It's tough to get an episode out every week, so I'm doing my best. So anyway, as I said in that episode a couple weeks ago, this episode is not like the ones we usually do.
Yeah, so this is going to be the first ever music review episode hosted on Life According to a Middle Schooler. And basically every few months or so, or whenever a new music trend emerges, we are going to do a music review where we'll go in depth into what the music trend is, why it's becoming so popular, and so much more than just that. And these episodes are mostly going to be informal, but also conversational. If you're wondering why we are doing this, you should know that we are a pretty musical family. Between Clark and I, we play 6 instruments, so we know a little bit about music. But anyway, that's all for my speech. Here is our conversation about the latest music trend. I should actually note that the trend is pretty much dying right now. It is not as popular as it was in the last few months, but we are going to talk about it anyway.
Let's go. Okay, so let's start. For those of you who weren't aware of the music trend that emerged in January and February, it's, to be honest, a little bit of a silly one. Sea shanties. That's right, sea shanties. You know, like those songs that the crew members of boats sang 300 years ago? And if you're still confused about what I'm talking about, here is one of those sea shanties, probably the most popular one that emerged during the past few months. It's called Wellerman, and it's by the Longest Johns.
So that was a sea shanty. And to give some background on what a sea shanty is, sea shanties are songs that were sung by crew members of sailing ships to help them coordinate their efforts and keep them focused and motivated on the notoriously grueling tasks of the job. The main purpose of these sea shanties is to help the workers synchronize their tasks, such as, say, pushing or pulling at the same time when they're hoisting sails. You'll notice that when we listened to Wellerman, there was definitely a clear beat, a rhythm there that could have been followed. And the chants were often involved, they often involved a call and response structure. And one sailor would be called the shanty man, and he would sing a verse. And then the rest of the sailors, they would all respond together. And the songs were specifically made for working with the rhythms to match, and they had easy-to-follow verses for the crew to sing.
So, sea shanties date back to at least the mid-1400s, but the exact origins of sea shanties can't really be traced to any one location or population or even time. However, the call and response style that forms the sea shanty likely came from enslaved people, you know, in the mid-1400s all the way to the 1800s, and that would often take place on a plantation or a place where enslaved people worked. And work songs like that in America have been traced all the way back to West African tradition that combines the rhythmic style and call and response lyrics with words relating to the workers' lives. Working sailors all over the world had their own versions of these sea shanties, and they were especially popular on the eastern coast of Canada, particularly in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Sea shanties represent the history of these areas, and they have actually carried through to the 21st century, not just from a couple months ago, but also with the modern-day Canadian musicians like the popular band Great Big Sea, and these are all dedicated to keeping those traditional sea shanty songs alive to this day.
But that's not exactly how sea shanties became so popular in these last few months in 2021. They actually became popular on an interesting platform, TikTok. And if you don't remember a lot from 2020, you probably still remember the whole TikTok sweeping the world thing. It's now a platform with over 1.1 billion users. That is absolutely crazy. But you can probably understand that it would be the platform that creates most of today's trends. And anyway, as we said, TikTok is the reason why this music blew up so much. It all started when 26-year-old Nathan Evans took a video of himself in his bedroom in Scotland singing the song The Wellerman, the same one that we played for you earlier on. And that video absolutely blew up. And in the video, Evans sings a cappella while knocking his clenched fist on a desk to keep the tempo. And that really shows the rhythm that comes along with all the sea shanties.
And apparently, so many people fell in love with the unique sound, and his video accumulated millions of views. Soon, other TikTok users began reposting his video and adding on their own harmonies and voices to the chant, from violin accompaniments to drum beats to electronic beat remixes. And so, with a continuous stream of new renditions being added, the trend quickly expanded all over the internet on all different platforms.
Now, if you're wondering why this music seemed to grow from more of a social media trend into an actual global music trend, here is the explanation provided by Natalie Mitchie in an article called Why Sea Shanties Are Sweeping the Internet, which was published on the Chatelaine website. She said, "The irony of people in a pandemic identifying with songs that were created to get sailors through tough times is not lost. Sea shanties have become a fun distraction, a place for people to unite over a shared niche interest, and amid a weirdly isolating moment in history. Sea shanties' catchy rhymes and easy-to-sing-along lyrics got sailors through difficult times, and now they're doing the same for a new generation. They provide a feeling of community, and that's something we could all use right now."
Okay, so now that we have explained how the music originated and how the trend emerged, we want to talk a little bit about our opinions on the music, how it sounds, and really just have a conversation about the theory of this music genre, as well as what makes it fun and easy to listen to. But first, we have a quick break so I can tell you about the sponsor of this episode. So this episode is sponsored by the Bite Thy Thumb podcast, and I know that's crazy. We're not sponsored by Anchor this week, but we're partnered with another podcast this week, and the Bite Thy Thumb podcast is a show where three lifelong friends they get together and they talk about sports, music, video games, whatever's on their mind. They talk usually for an hour and a half long episodes. And they've talked about so many things, from football to different rap scenes across different regions and cities. So, yes, please do check them out. Their links are in the description. And I do have to add a quick note that they do use some mildly explicit language occasionally in their episodes, so please be aware of when you're listening and who you're listening around. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much to the Bite Thy Thumb podcast for sponsoring this episode, and go check them out.
Welcome back to Life According to a Middle Schooler and our first ever music review. Before the break, we talked about sea shanties, how the music originated, as well as how the music trend recently emerged. And now we want to talk a little bit about our opinions on the music, how it sounds, and really just have a conversation about what makes the music fun and easy to listen to.
Also, if you want to sponsor me like the Bite Thy Thumb podcast did, you can shoot me an email at middleschoolpodcaster@gmail.com and I can give you some details.
Anyway, let's start and really dive deeper into the theory of this genre of music. Let's talk about what makes this genre unique and what was the reason that it was able to become so popular so recently.
Yeah, so I want to start out by saying that it's definitely really fun music, and it can be added to really easily. Like, you can add anything to it and it'll still sound like the song.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's really good for remixes, as you may have seen if you were scrolling through TikTok in the last few months. It's really easy to add beats to, and you can even change the genre and still make it sound so iconic.
Yeah, like it's a song that you could turn into an EDM trap remix and everybody would still recognize it.
And a few people even did try to do that.
Exactly.
And that's one of the biggest reasons why it was able to blow up so much on TikTok.
For sure. I think that another aspect of the music that makes it really fun for people to listen to and participate in is the call and response part of it. And although we didn't actually hear it in the Wellerman, a lot of these sea shanties had a call and response part in them.
And even though, like Clark said, the Wellerman doesn't include that call and response, you can really hear it when you listen to it, where that call and response could be added or how that could be adapted to form a call and response. But I think that call and response aspect definitely made them really fun to listen to and also really fun to sing along with. And I also think that a lot of sea shanties have this really cool group idea to them where, maybe one person sings the verse and then the whole group sings the chorus.
Yeah, it really includes like the whole group or band. And again, it makes it really fun to be a part of, whether you're singing or listening to it.
Well, that's all we have time for on this episode, so let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode where we hosted our first ever music review and talked about the latest music trend that was emerging, sea shanties. Also, thank you so much for 1,200 listens and 300 subscribers. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And thank you so much to the Bite Thy Thumb podcast for sponsoring this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with your friends and family so we can reach a larger audience and so you never have to miss another one. Well, that's all for this week. I'm Mitch.
I'm Clark.
And that was episode 16 of Life According to a Middle Schooler, where we hosted our first ever music review.